Can y'all hear me? The chairman is momentarily delayed, so we got a poor substitute, but we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thank y'all for coming today to the House Judiciary Committee. It looks like we have about 3 bills that we'll be covering when we start today. And if you would, bow your heads with me, and we'll begin our meeting with a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to be here today to do the business for the people of the state of Georgia. We ask you to give us the wisdom that we need, as the pastor of the day told us today to ask for. We ask for that now. Bring it into this room and help us do work that's good for these people. Amen. All right. Let's see. Mr. Dickey, you right front and center. You want to go? Yep. All right. Welcome, and tell us about House Bill 871.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, appreciate you being here today. I've got House Bill 871, LC 41012-EC. Very simple agency bill, cleanup bill. On line 13, we're changing the Office of Planning and Budget to the Department of Law over the Attorney General's office. As I said, it's just a cleanup bill that was oversight last year when we moved the Office of Consumer Protection from the Office of Governor over to the Department of Law. And so just missed picking up where the funds are deposited for the lemon law bill, and so we're moving it over to a place where it where the office is housed now. Funds will follow the Office of Consumer Protection there. So that's all this bill does. And that's the answer.
Okay, I see we have some. Representative Welch.
Just whenever you're ready for motion.
Well, let's see. We might have a question over here real quick. Representative Mabry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I understand the bill, you're moving it from money from the Office of Planning and Budget to the lawyers, right?
That was done last year. I don't know if you voted for it, but it was SB 148 last year where we did that.
Oh, God.
Representative Dickey, I think the answer would be yes here for that.
Yeah.
But it's working well over there. Spoke with John Sowers, who's the director of consumer protection over there.
Everybody's good.
It's where he gets yourself in trouble.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Representative Mabry. Any other questions from any members of the committee regarding House Bill 871? Seems like to be that rare situation where we cleaned up something we did last year.
Yes.
Never happens. Yeah. All right. Okay. Representative Welch, did you want to make a motion? Well, let me back up 1 second. Is there anybody else here who wants to speak on House Bill 871? I didn't see anybody that signed up, but I just wanted to check. All right. Hearing none. Representative Welch?
I'd like to make a motion the recommendation do pass.
There is a motion to pass. There's a second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of do pass House Bill 871, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. The bill moves on to rules. Thank you, Representative Dickey.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you being here today. You go out there and tell everybody House Judiciary is easy, all right? All righty. Let's see here. Mr. Mabry, you've got one on the agenda today. You want to take from there and give that one to us? House Bill, you don't have to go around if you don't want to. You want to come around?
Yeah.
Okay, come on around then. All right. House Bill 804. Please introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, State Representative Ronnie Mabry, District 63, I bring before you House Bill 804. This is a bill to add a 5th Superior Court judge to the Clayton County Judicial Circuit. Clayton County, last time they had a judge added to Superior Court was in 1984. Since then, there's been a dramatic increase in population in the county. There also have been additional cases because with people moving in, population increases. Also, we have a result of that, crime increases. So we've had more crime and higher type felony crimes taking place in the county. They've been using a lot of senior judges because of the caseload is so high. And actually, the Georgia Judicial Council did a report and said that they have the highest caseload in the state of Georgia with an average of 5,817 cases per judge in Clayton County. So they're working their butts off. The foundation of Clayton County, the core, is the judicial system. So we want to make sure we have a strong judicial system there, that the judges are not overworked. They're doing as best they can right now, but we need to add a 5th judge to Superior Court to make the cases flow more efficiently and be more effective for the citizens of the county. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Representative Mabry, thank you. I know that and you may have mentioned this, I was trying to scan the bill. We have a process we go by where we study these circuits to determine, and that they're ranked, right? Is Clayton ranked next in line to get another
Absolutely,
judge? Okay.
absolutely.
They're top
They
of
are
the list.
ranked in line, and we have the chief judge from Superior Court of Clayton County here and the court administrator,
Okay.
if they want to come in. I think they might be signed up, but they're
Okay.
more than welcome
I do
to
see that.
come forward and answer any questions too, and go into more detail on how the actual court operates down in Clayton County.
Okay, all right. Before we do that, we will, though, however, see if any members of the committee have any questions for Representative Mabry. Anybody? Okay. Representative Welch.
Mr. Chairman, I think I do have questions about that process you were just talking about. I'd like
Yes.
to hear more about that. So I don't know if Representative Mabry is the right person to speak to it, but I'd like to know more about the background and what justified the recommendation for this extra judge. So you may not know, but
You want your
folks
judge
would-
to address that?
Yeah,
Representative
I can
Mabry?
let
Okay.
them address that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
That's-
good.
thank
Okay. Anybody else on the committee? Any questions for Representative Mabry? Representative Mabry, you don't need to move. Why don't you just invite your judge to come on up and sit here with us? And this is Chief Judge Al Collier. Is that pronounced correctly, Judge?
That's correct.
Welcome to the House Judiciary Committee. We always get smarter here when we have a judge in our presence.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here today and
Yes,
for,
sir.
to appear before you. As you said, my name is Al Collier. I'm the Chief Judge of the Clayton Judicial Circuit. Representative Wilkes, to answer your question first. Okay, what happened was that we did submit our numbers. You know that there is, if you're aware, there is a formula that is done by the Judicial Council to determine the workload assessment for a judicial for a judicial circuit. When we submitted our numbers did not fall high enough for us to be to qualify. So we then appealed to the workload assessment committee to the of the Judicial Council, and I appeared before the workload assessment committee and made my argument. At that point in time, what they did was, my argument was basically what Representative Mabry has said today, and there's a couple other comments that I'm going to make. But at that point in time, the workload assessment committee voted to allow the consideration of a 5th judgeship for Clayton County to go before the Judicial Council. It did go before the Judicial Council. I also appeared before the Judicial Council and made comments to the Judicial Council, and Judicial Council voted almost unanimously. It was one negative vote, dissenting vote, but voted for Clayton County to be approved for a 5th judgeship, and that is the process by which we went through. Now, one of the things that I argued to the Workload Assessment Committee was, yes, there's a formula, but because of circumstances, there's an exception to just about every formula. We felt like we met that exception, and I believe that I proved to the Workload Assessment Committee that exception was in place. One of the reasons being is because of, as Representative Mabry was talking about, the number of serious felonies that we have in Clayton County. As a matter of fact, we have in the past 3 years. Let me get down to. In the past 3 years, from 2013 to the middle of last year, we had 51 murder indictments that were assigned to the 4 judges. Now, that's just murder cases. I mean, we're not talking about, there's many more armed robbery cases and serious violent felony cases, aggravated child molestation, aggravated sodomy. Those cases are cases that are always tried. They're always cases that take some time. Murder cases usually take at least a week, if not more. So it's something that, those are the cases that really occupy our time. Our serious felony cases since 2013 are up 20%. has a 20% increase. In civil filings since 2013, we've had an increase of 22%. We have, and I'll be honest with you, what is hitting us hard is the murder cases. I mean, that's what takes the most of our time. From my perspective, from my calendar, this year, I have 8 murder cases that are special set throughout the rest of the year. What that happens is it takes a week to try. Well, what happens with the rest of your cases if you spend a whole week trying a murder case? Those don't get tried. And we do our best by bringing in senior judges to try and help out. We've exhausted the allotment from state funds for for senior judges. Also, we have had to go into county funds to be able to pay for the use of senior judges because the need is that great. We have one of the things that I think is going to be impacting us. Let's make sure. Oh, and let me make sure we're clear on something. Representative Mabry was correct that the Clayton County was determined to be Clayton County courts were determined to be the busiest court system in the state of Georgia. That was all courts in total. But if you look at courts in total, all of those, except for really state court, have some manner in which they feed into the superior court. And so that's why their busyness impacts our busyness. And one of the things that's going to be impacting our courts, our Clayton County courts that's going to be coming up, is that this year, the end of this year, we're going to be losing 2 superior court judges. They're going to be retiring, Judge Simmons and Judge Benefield. That means that walking out the door at the end of this year is going to be a combined 48 years of judicial experience. At the end of 2018, there's going to be another judge that is going to be retiring, and that judge which is me, is going to have 20 years of judicial experience is going to be walking out the door. So, and why I bring that up is because whenever you have a new judge that comes on, it takes them time to get acclimated, to acclimated to the job. And so because of that, calendars are going to fall behind, and that's why we are in need of another judge to just help get caught up. I mean, we are, the term that I use is that we are crushingly busy in Clayton County.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. We appreciate the explanation. Representative Walsh, you have another question?
Chief Judge, thank you very much for the explanation. A couple of questions, if I may. First is, do we know what the physical impact will be going forward to both the state and county budgets for the additional judge?
Well, the money for the budget has been included in the Council of Superior for the position has been included in the Council of Superior Court Judges. Of course, you're talking about a salary, the judge's salary, and then secretary and I'm not sure whether it would be. There would be a law clerk that would be, and I'm not sure whether that be county or state.
It's county.
Is it county? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Then we would be. Of course, and then there's we've got to get a courtroom ready. We have a courtroom available, but it's got to be upgraded to the point where we've got to have it ready with an evidence presentation system for a new judgeship. And then there's a little bit of remodeling. I think they told me about $6,000 for remodeling of an office to get for a new judgeship position. My
recollection is I think it was under $200,000 that we were looking at.
All
the benefits, salary, and the.
I would think so.
Staff,
I think that's about what it's somewhere. I want to say between $200,000 and $250,000, something like that.
The other was the having practice in Clayton County and continuing to practice there. I can woefully testify to the fact that there is indeed a backlog. I can't seem to get a decision out of the courts, and that's troubling me and my clients. And
if that's me, just let me know now. Okay?
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to name any names because I still have to practice there, and I'll be back. But
it's a good time to ask.
But it is a good time. But it is, and I'll just express this from client's perspective. Clients that have, and representing those clients that have cases pending that are seeking a decision that's been heard. We're just waiting for a written order. And if indeed the backlog is that severe and you are crushed by the caseload that is there, and that is having any impact on clients such as my own, trying to get a decision and trying to get some relief to the dispute that they have. I mean, this isn't just a matter of administration and personnel and salaries. What we're really talking about is whether or not people who have bona fide, legitimate results seeking and needing judicial resolution are not getting those in a timely fashion. Then there is either a problem in the administration of the courts and their workload, or there is definitely a shortage in the man or woman power to administer the justice through the judges. So it's one of the two, and it sounds like to me you have a caseload that's really bearing down on the judges.
Well, and it is one of the issues that happens is that we are in court every day. I have a morning calendar. I have an afternoon calendar. Most of the time, majority of the time, it takes me all afternoon, all morning, and all afternoon, which means that files stack up on my desk. And I have a law clerk that helps me do research, helps in the preparation of orders. But I'm not just going to blanket sign orders and send them out the door without looking through the file, doing the research. And you're in court so much that it's hard to do that.
Right.
Hard to do that. So I understand your concern. Yes.
Representative, also, if I may, just to give you some perspective about what the other courts have done. Since 1984, there have been 3 additional judges to state court, and in juvenile court there have been 2 additional judges. So all the other courts are working, they're adding more judges there, and then everything's flowing up to the top, and we don't have enough judges there.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Welch. Representative Evans, you have a question? Or is that Representative Front? Okay. Dr. Bruce.
Just out of curiosity, given that you know, because you mentioned that you know what all of these different mainly it's criminal stuff that you're dealing with.
Yes, sir.
As the chief judge, and I don't know if this is in your authority to do it or not, but if you know what all of the problems are and you know what's causing all of the problems, is there anything that your court can do that could address the underlying root of why we're having all of these crimes that's causing to have this backlog, and address trying to maybe not have as many crimes?
I understand. And well, that's one thing. The one thing that I have done in the past is, and this was before I became chief judge, but I participated in a video, and admittedly, one of the concerns that I have is armed robberies that are committed by 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. I mean, crime is wrong altogether, but those really bothered me because of what they were facing. And so I participated in a video where I was that was shown at all the schools in Clayton County. As it relates to getting out in our schools and talking to our schools, I would love to do that, but unfortunately, I don't have. I wish I had the time to do that, because I do not. As chief judge, I don't have any other of my caseload responsibilities taken away from me just because I'm chief judge. And the other judges, they're in the same position too. I mean, they are not able to get. We are locked in a courthouse because of the responsibilities that we have every day in our own courts.
And I can understand that, appreciate it, but can you delegate it to somebody? I guess the question is, if you don't address the root cause of the problem just continues to get worse, and then you need another judge.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm just,
I understand.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get at, is there something that you or the judiciary can do to work with whoever needs to be worked with to address the root cause of the problem? So
Well,
that you don't have that.
the only thing that just thought about me was what I need to do. It's a good idea is to get our sheriff, get our chief of police, get our chairman of county commission, and say, what can we do to get out? Because it is the way to impact crime, in my opinion, is when in adolescence. You get to them when they're adolescents, and affect them then, and keep them from committing crimes in the future. there's one thing that I don't know why this slipped my mind because I've been doing this for so long. One of the things that I have done as part of, I've been presiding over this court for 3.5 years now, is a drug court. I began a drug court, and it has been very effective. I mean, we really go after the worst of the worst drug offenders and people with property crimes that are based upon drug offenders. So, I mean, I am working within the court, doing a drug court, trying to cut down on our recidivism rate at least. So, but thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Representative Bruce. Any other questions from members of the committee for Judge? Okay, thank you, Judge. We appreciate that. I don't believe I saw anybody else signed up for House Bill 804, so unless there's anything else, Representative Mabry, you want to add?
No, I think everything was covered.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, well, then we'll bring the bill back to the committee. Is there a motion regarding House Bill 804? There's a motion to pass. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of passage of House Bill 804, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. There is none. Congratulations and good luck in rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Judge, we
Members of
appreciate
the
you being
committee.
here today. Thank you very much for your
much.
help. Okay. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to come up here and be where you're supposed to be?
That's all got left? Okay. Sure. We've got a former prosecutor, current judge, I'm told, with us today. My name is Stan Gunter. Is he hiding somewhere in the audience?
I'm trying to.
How you doing, Judge Gunter?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, fine. We miss you down here.
Well, sometimes I miss it.
Sometimes. Take a rare moment, right? Well, we're pleased you're joining us today. And, of course, with Judge Collier, thank you. It's a good bill you got passed, and I think we all agree we know the growth and situation in Clayton County has called for another judgeship. We have left House Bill 856, which is the Fleming bill dealing with the probate courts and the bond requirement for judges. And Mr. Fleming, if you'd like to, you can remain in your seat and just present from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll give you excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could ask Mark, where are you? Mark Milton, you want to come forward? And if I may, Mr. Chairman, anybody else
Sure.
you brought with you today?
Judge Kelly wanted.
Judge Kelly, come on up, and I'll begin, and then I'm sure it'll turn to smart folks like y'all very shortly here. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 856 is a bill that was brought to me by the Probate Judges Council. They have had some recent instances around the state where we already require a bond, that they be bonded like several other county officials, but that, as best we can tell, has not been upped in decades. And so their council came to us with a proposal to raise their bond from $25,000 to $100,000. I suspect in the future they'll be looking at bonds that affect their clerks and other people in the office. This one only affects the judges, and they're going to study that issue over the interim and possibly bring something to us next year. But pretty simply, that's all it does. It raises their bond from $25,000 to $100,000. So if there's an instance where a money exchanges hand or something is missing financially in the probate judge's court, there is a resolution for the person that was aggrieved there, at least for a matter of $100,000 bond. Mr. Chairman, that's basically what the bill does. I certainly would be happy to answer any question, and would also ask the chair if we could have Mr. Middleton
Sure.
and the judge respond as well.
Love to have you address the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm afraid I've made the mistake of telling Mr. Fleming everything I know about the bill, so he just told you everything that I know. But Judge Walk could make some other comments. There were some questions at the subcommittee. One was in regard to how long
the current bond level had been in, and it's last time it's been touched is in '82, and then as Representative Fleming mentioned, as we were looking to address this issue in discussions with Lake Council and with the author of the bill, we realized there are several provisions in this area that just haven't been touched. Some of them as far back as the 30s, and so I think one of the things that we may be coming back to you to talk about are some modernization of those provisions, and how that affects this situation is that there are insurance policies that ACCG have in place that cover counties, and counties can avail themselves of that. This situation, I think this statute still, though, probably governs a certain number of counties that aren't part of that ACCG program. And so I think in an abundance of caution to take it from 25 to 100, this year, and then come back and look at the issue more broadly next year would be a reasonable approach.
Okay, so when you talk about a GERMA type coverage, are you speaking then of a surety type coverage, where you have errors, omissions, or officers and directors' liability type policy coverage? I'm not sure what kind of coverage they would have that would address a probate judge. So I'm trying to clarify. You know?
Go ahead.
Judge? Come up, Judge.
Am I allowed to talk?
Yeah. We don't want you to sit there and look pretty.
Failing but trying. It is akin to errors and omissions. There are policies required for sheriffs, probate judges, clerks of superior court, clerks of state court, various things. Because the probate judge is the clerk of the probate court, we also have what I will today call arguably administrative tasks, because if on any other given day I'm going to call them judicial tasks, but that's a whole other issue with immunity. But because of those dual roles, we are bonded in a similar situation to all of those other elected officials in an errors and omissions.
So if you can buy that type of insurance, that takes the place of what we call a bond.
Correct.
Or does it?
For example, Cobb is a self-insuring, and we have a blanket bond for all of our electeds that come through my office, and I approve it, and I'm one of them.
Thank you. Questions? You have, I'm sorry, Mr. Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few questions, if I may. How is the bond? How is it paid for? I'm trying to understand the actual document that's procured for the bond or surety, and then is there a monthly or annual payment that is made on that to maintain the bond or surety?
I can speak specifically to Cobb County. I can speak generally to my understanding of the other 158. Ours is a surety bond issued through an insurance agent for all of us. The premium is paid by the county governing authority for each of those offices. They issue us a blanket policy. It just looks like your insurance policy on your real estate. That is recorded in my office and in the Secretary of State's office as a document of record, so that if there is a recovery sought against it for a breach by any of the insured people, that it's a document of record that they can reference. Does that answer your question?
It does for Cobb County, but do we know how it's handled in other counties? Is it handled similar to that, or is it ever taken from the pocket of the probate judge, him or herself?
It is it is my understanding that it is a responsibility of the governing authority to cover the bond, because it is a coverage of the position to benefit the county in terms of potential liability.
Okay. And then may I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
And then on the issue, you raised the issue, and I had the question about immunity. Could you explain to me the immunity that you do have, and where there may not be need for coverage?
As where there may need to be or may not
need to be coverage.
There may not need to be coverage in anything that a judge does in their judicial capacity. As Mr. Middleton eloquently put it, stealing is not part of my judicial responsibility. And unfortunately, for example, my office has 20 employees who work at my discretion and serve under my blanket bond. If any one of those people of course unknown to me, does anything that is harmful to any of the citizens of my county or any other, that citizen would have potential to seek recovery against my bond because they serve at my pleasure and are my deputies. So that is exactly what happened in the Chatham County case, where there was a significant recovery far in excess of the amount of the bond. So we have people who are not made whole, and this is an effort to do that. So there are things that are arguably administrative. Superior Court clerks hold the registry of the court. Probate courts hold registries of courts. Arguably, if I'm serving in my clerk capacity, I'm in that equivalent role. So if I mismanage something or flat out steal it, it is outside of my judicial capacity.
How much was, in the Chatham County case, how much was the damage caused? I'm not familiar with the case, but
Approximately $300,000. I'm speaking off the top of my head from quite a time lapse, but it was it had to do with the sugar refinery case, and
that's right. Okay.
The proceeds of the conservatorship were paid into the registry and misused by a clerk.
And do we know numerically what amount of proceeds generally are held across the state on average by probate courts?
We don't, and that number would not surprisingly vary massively depending on counties and size and personnel and all of that.
And the only reason I ask is if that's what we're trying to protect from the theft being probably the most likely scenario, then I just want to make sure that we have the right amount in the bill.
This number actually came from the Superior Court clerks recently, sometime more than 4 years ago, but fairly recent to that, increased their bond requirement to 125. So this number is honestly just sort of looking at that number. And because there's no differential between the probate judge and the probate clerk consistently within the way we're organized, that's why we're coming to you with one bond principle.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? I'm going to ask one that sort of deals with, I guess, getting into the weeds a little bit, but there's, to my mind, a difference between bond and insurance. And that difference is, with insurance, you have individual claims that can go up to a certain sum. With a bond, you have a certain sum that claims accumulate up to that amount. You follow what I'm saying?
I do.
So my question now, by our saying bond as opposed to some form of surety, errors and omissions coverage, are we limiting what will be the ability of multiple parties to recover up to $100,000 each, as opposed to the cumulative amount cannot exceed $100,000?
Multiple claims of up to 100,000 as opposed to various claims totaling no more than 100,000. I would have my educated guess from looking at, again, my bond is that it is a $100,000 bond, so that it would be in place for coverage up to $100,000 for a claim. But I would have to
for multiple claims.
For a claim.
I know for a claim. So if you have
I believe
multiple,
that it is coverage for. I'm sorry to interrupt. For one $100,000 claim is my understanding from my recollection of looking at my bond 3.5 years ago.
Okay. Maybe I'm still not clear on my response. If you had three people who had $100,000 claims individually each, and you only have $100,000 coverage, as opposed to $100,000 each occurrence, do we have $100,000 total coverage?
And I don't want to overstate my confidence in my answer, but my answer is I believe that there is one $100,000
amount, a pot. That's right. Which kind of begs the question. And we can certainly draw this on the basis of the clerk having, as opposed to calling it a bond. I mean, I see the furrowed brow of Ms. Travis. Errors and omissions coverage, but it may be something we might look at thought-wise, passing this and saying, let's look at this whole situation, because I mean, this is all past time for looking at having a requirement of insurance coverage as opposed to a bond for an office holder, and it might be something to examine. We don't we haven't had many of these come up in the last several years, and so we don't. It's the kind of thing it doesn't ring a bell until it's put before you. All right, just wanted to talk about that. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the committee on House Bill 856? We got
very briefly,
another person in the audience. Come on around here and have a seat and just let us hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I
Just
thought maybe your executive director might want to talk too, but apparently not.
very briefly, my name is Tracy Mason. I'm with Judicial Council, Administrative Office of the Courts, and the Judicial Council has taken a position of support on this legislation.
All right.
All right.
That's great.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Welch?
Ms. Mason, has the Judicial Council done the research that we're talking about? Do we know what the exposure is, if you will, for our probate courts across the state? So that I think, in part what I'm fishing for is the exposure amount. Will the bond cover what's generally held by and could be stolen by, if you will, in the courts? And then I think that coincides with the chairman's point about, do we have enough coverage? Is it a one-claim deal, and then once that's used up for that particular year, is it gone? And I think those are really important questions to know from the public's perspective as to whether or not we're actually providing meaningful coverage or not. And if we are, that's great. That's just kind of what I'm getting to.
The Judicial Council has not done the research on this. We are in support of the bill at the Council of Probate Court Judges, and so are happy to assist with that as we can.
May I ask you why you're sitting there, since I think it would be something to be helpful to come out of either Judicial Council, Administrative Office of the Courts, to look at this whole issue of coverage between now and the next time we're in session, as applies to clerks of the court, probate courts and judges, and whether other capacities we might have, bonds required by judicial officers or clerks, to see what is there and, in fact, put it on the basis of more of a errors and omissions type coverage as opposed to a bond.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate you take that message back for us.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Anything further, Mr. Welch?
Just to move.
All right. We'll be sure there's no one else speaking. If not, we'll close off public input on House Bill 856, and the chair will entertain a motion to House Bill 856.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion recommending pass. I would like us to look into that a little bit more in subsequent legislation. That way we'll at least provide greater level of coverage than we're currently providing in the meantime.
Second. All right. And on that discussion point, do you think it'd be appropriate to have Judicial Council of Georgia be the one to help get that research done?
Yes, sir.
I think so, too. It's job security for you.
Just as long as they don't come and ask in the budget. For
That's right. So we had a motion second, and any further discussion? If not, the chair will call for a vote on House Bill 856 from LC 296846 as submitted to committee. As all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We have a due pass. That is all the bills we have, and I appreciate everyone's patience in being with us today. We do want to announce there is going to be a dinner for our committee. We have a committee dinner that will be held by the Georgia Trial Lawyers Association next Tuesday evening at February the 9th, 5:30 p.m. start time, and it'll be at Kevin Rathburn Steaks at 154 Krog Street Northeast. If you haven't received a email, we will be sure to get this out. Put it on your calendar now. It's always a nice evening and good dinner. If there's nothing further to come before the committee, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.